Good evening, sir.
Yeah, please go on.
My name is Vikrant Raje. So my question is about how to get rid of English, because one of the important aspect of Indianization of judiciary or converting India to a Bharat is getting out of clutches of English. Because we do not have any common language. What can be a roadmap? Can Sanskrit be the alternative? So what are your views on this? Because Ambedkar has once said that Sanskrit is a good option as a national language. Thank you.
Thanks for citing Ambedkar, but I think this question can be addressed without falling back on him. So I don't need to prove my points necessarily by the touchstone of Dr. Ambedkar. He may be relevant for certain aspects, he need not be discussed on every subject. Now, as far as the question of a common language is concerned, there is a discussion, forget Dr. Ambedkar, by Sri Lokanath Mishra in the Constant Assembly debates, who is the father of the current MP from Puri, Sri Pinaki Mishra, a senior advocate in the Supreme Court. Go through the discussions on this particular subject. This was actually proposed actively when the language policy was being discussed. And they were discussing the provisions, I think, starting from Article 351 onwards to 343 onwards, in terms of what shall be the transactional language of the Supreme Court, what shall be the transactional language of the government institutions. This was a discussion that was going on. So Sanskrit was certainly proposed. I think the solution is not that difficult. Again, the history surrounding the solution is a serious problem, because will this be accepted in certain parts of the southern states? I'm not sure of it. Will it be accepted in the northeast? I'm not sure of it. Will it be accepted in Kashmir? I'm not sure of it. Will it be accepted in Bengal as it stands today? I have no idea. Or will it be even accepted in Maharashtra as it stands today? I really have no idea. Okay? So, as far as I am concerned, none of these discussions are possible without addressing the central question of distortion of history. Because Sanskrit has now been given a certain racial connotation. It has been given a certain colonizing connotation. And we are much more comfortable accepting the language of the admitted colonizer, namely the British man, but we seem to be very uncomfortable accepting the language of the alleged colonizer, namely the so-called Aryan. Okay, so I think unless and until we address the question of history and whether this particular language, see, there are two aspects. One is, of course, the question of self-esteem, pride. But the second question is a very serious and practical question of whether this is feasible. What is the economic cost? What is the cost of integration? How long will it take before we actually think of Sanskrit as not a dead language and as a language which is meant for transaction? That is a question which I'm not sure of. Because you see, at least other countries invested significantly in their education policy and language policy immediately after independence. Anybody who's read, and I've cited this example more than once, but let me repeat it for whatever it's worth. Hebrew was practically a dead language until the early 20th century. Until the Jewish Congress was set up, I think in 1897 by Theodor Herzl. And then they started thinking of creation of the state of Israel, namely the Jewish state, Der Judenstaat, that's what he said in his book. And they then started asking themselves, what shall be the common language? Because you see, by that time, for 2000 years, the Jewish community had lived as a diaspora in multiple countries. Somewhere in Russia, somewhere in Poland, somewhere in Germany, somewhere in Africa, Ethiopia, in all these places, Syria, Iraq. So the question was, if all these people come back, they have forgotten Hebrew, what is the common language that they shall speak in? So there was one madman called Yehuda ben Eliezer, who said Hebrew shall be the common language. And people branded him a crackpot during his life and time. But ultimately, when they set up their education system, they decided that Hebrew shall not only be revived, it shall be mainstreamed through the education policy. Okay. Ultimately, that madman proved to be the prophet, and he turned out to be right. Unfortunately, India still hasn't produced that one madman who can actually assert this and push it hard. Okay. Who says, no matter what, you guys can label me, you can call me whatever you want, but I am not changing my position one bit, and this is the only language that shall work. Because ultimately, history is not created by people who are agreeable, history is actually created by people who are disagreeable, who are intransigent, who say, मैं रास्ते से नहीं हटूंगा, जो करना है कर लो, which means you will have to either kill me or you have to work around me. These are the only two options that you give to the rest of the world. We have arrived at a spot where there must be a certain degree of civilizational intransigence to basically say, we will not change this position any further. This is our position. Those who can take it can, those who can't can leave it and also leave. If that position is something that you're not willing to take, after 20 years you'll continue to ask the very same question. So I'm basically telling you, address the issues surrounding the politics of Sanskrit. The caste politics of Sanskrit, the religious politics of Sanskrit, and the racial politics of Sanskrit, and then we can have a common conversation. Because I refuse to buy this nonsense that prior to the introduction of English, Bharatiyas were incapable of talking to each other. ठीक है, ऐसे तो नहीं हो रहा था ना? Okay. Apparently we were transacting business with Rome, but the Odia was not talking to the Telugu because English नहीं था ना? क्या करें? अरे रे, आपको English नहीं आता, हम आपसे बात नहीं करेंगे. Right? So that seems to be the beauty of our understanding today. We don't want to ask this question. If there were permits, if there were, let's say, Janapada to Janapada permits, and they were transacting business, and all of this was actually happening, what is the language? Why don't you ask that question? So, during the course of the Padmanabha Swami case, the one thing I learned is that in the vaults of the Padmanabha Swami temple, among the treasures that you find is also the Roman coin, because they used to transact. Why? What did Rome need from us? Spices. What did they give in return? Gold. So, Roman coins are there clearly establishing business. तो क्या sign language में बात कर रहे थे ये लोग? तो अगर ये उनके साथ बात कर सकते हैं, what is happening here? Internally, what was going on? You were even transacting business with Misr, which is Egypt. Which comes from Egypt itself, comes from the word Copt, because Coptic Christians were among the earliest Christians to convert to Christianity. Coptics was effectively the name that was given to the people of Egypt initially. So the point is, if this was happening, why are we giving this entire impression that Sanskrit was the language of the elite? No, there are multiple levels of it. One is the advanced language, which obviously is meant to be discussed between the elites. But then there is also the Samanya Bhasha. Are you telling me that the language of Hindi itself, which is applied on the street, is the same as that is applied between the academics of Hindi? Not possible, right? So I think this requires a fair degree of investment and research. Because you see, solution ki baat nahi ho rahi hai. You are first of all trying to address the politics around every issue. Name one issue in this country which can be separated from the politics that has been created around it. Language, gender, caste, religion, Rashtriya identity, everything. So you have to be able to deal with that. Unfortunately, I don't think there is even an intellectual investment on that particular front with state support. Whatever is happening through individual efforts. And whatever is happening because of some madman actually burning the midnight oil and giving up his personal life to do this. A lot of people have done this and they have died bitter deaths. A lot of people have done this in the previous generation without any support from anyone. So therefore, let us first respect those people who are seriously working on these subjects and give them the support needed. Solutions will emerge. If not in one generation, at least in the next generation. Because some of these issues which have been in, let's say, which are suffering as a consequence of investment of over 200 years, you can't hope to address it within 10 years or 15 years. But the beginning must be made. Once the beginning is made, some people will start taking it seriously and even pursue it as a matter of choice of career. That's when this entire thing starts. How many people can you actually show me today in the development sector and in the language sector who have focused on producing papers which explain how we come out with an Indic language policy, which speaks of mainstreaming of Indic languages as part of transactions, as part of state institutions, and creating a common language? Why is that a discussion that's not there even at the PhD level? Forget the state level. Because there is no incentive for it. आप लिखेंगे उसके बाद क्या होगा? किसी लाइब्रेरी में पढ़ा रहेगा, कौन उसको देखेगा? So that is where the role of the state comes. The state, its biggest strength is to create a multiplier effect. That is, if the state becomes the launchpad for a certain policy, X is capable of becoming X raised to the power of 10. So it has the ability to create an order of magnitude effect. And therefore state investment is significantly necessary. But if the state is stuck in the very same old done to death nonsense that I don't have an identity, I'm a secular state, I don't have any relationship with my civilization is not Hindu, yoga is not Hindu, Ayurveda is not Hindu, finally Hindu is also not Hindu. You de-Hinduize everything under the sun, then what remains? इसके बाद discussion करने के लिए कुछ बचा क्या है? हो गया काम. Next.
Yeah.
The interesting part is it's not just the state which is making statements such as this. Some new age YouTube gurus have also started saying that yoga और Hindu के बीच में कोई अंतर ही नहीं, there is no relationship at all. God save us. Yes.
Hello, sir.
Where is this? Yeah, please.
My name is Rishikesh, and I would like to thank you for writing the wonderful book. I haven't personally read it. My mother is reading it, and she has not given it to me. So, but she says it's it's great. So I believe her. Since I haven't read it, so I'll be asking question based on one of the threads that you started in the previous question, answer of the previous question. You said history is created by people who are disagreeable and not agreeable. You know, that one man, wo aadmi, ek aadmi, jo he is intransigent and all those. My question is, when one man stands up and disagrees with the masses, people start to, whether he is in power or not, people start to term him as a dictatorial or jhatka politics or whatever. So how would you counter that? So that's one question. And I had a second question.
Repeat that question, please, because I think there's a problem with the audio. Just repeat the question.
Sorry. Oh, repeat the question. Sorry. So my question was, when a person a disagreeable person comes, people start to term him as a dictator or authoritarian.
Understood.
Yeah. So how would you counter that? If he has to create a certain person has to create a history by. Oh, hold. Sorry. So if he has to create a history, he has to go against the flow. How would he do that if he is being, termed a dictator or authoritarian? So that's one question. And second question is, since you are a Supreme Court lawyer, I wanted to ask this for a long time to a Supreme Court lawyer. There is a perception, at least for me, I don't know about the masses here, but there is a perception that the judiciary is not being fair in terms of, a better word would be, it is trying to, impose the law, or it is trying to impose the rules where it can impose it, and it is not trying to, impose it where it cannot be forced. So, what are your comments on that? I hope you have understood.
I've understood the question. I've understood the question. Okay.
Thank you.
Trying too hard to sound politically correct, but I got the message. So, and you're putting a lawyer in the spot with regard to an institution that he's practicing before. Very good. So, as far as the first question is concerned, so take three people, A, B, and C. All three of them go to the same institution. Two of them come out relatively unchanged with respect to their attachment to their respective cultures. One person comes out spitting venom on his culture and with a sense of self-loathing. All three are being subjected to the same kind of education, but the impact seems to be different on different people. The reason is twofold. One, the other two groups are effectively producing institutions, and which is to say societal institutions as well as family-based institutions, which manage to put a certain filter which is not changed by the education system. Whereas as far as the majority community is concerned, it has effectively outsourced the value of introduction of any kind of value-based filter entirely to the school system, entirely to the rest of the society. The institutions or the traditional institutions which are supposed to give you the rooting in your culture have effectively been emasculated by the state. And the family, in turn, from a joint family system to the nuclear family system, its ability to provide cultural mooring as far as its children are concerned has already been reduced. Independent of that, they take a lot of pride in the degree of freedom that they give to their children as opposed to the kind of values that they impart to the children. Okay? When you have these fundamental problems, you are producing such intransigent people despite the system and in spurts, not with a certain degree of regularity. Because at the end of the day, it's a question of how many such intransigent people you're able to produce on a regular basis, who keep taking a shot at the system to keep changing it on an incremental basis on a regular basis. Because this is not something that can be done in 1 year or 2 years. One generation needs to produce someone who takes a serious shot at the system, changes it in one way. Then that has to work. You've had Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, you've had Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and then you've had Shri Narendra Modi. You started off with Azharuddin, then you went to Saurav Ganguly, then you tried with Rahul Dravid. From there, you moved gradually towards Dhoni. And then you have come to Virat Kohli. Can you see the increase in confidence over successive generations? That happens everywhere. That applies in every aspect of life. So therefore, you should be looking at a vision which is fairly long term, and you must be investing in such institutions and individuals, because it is institutions that produce such individuals, and those individuals themselves who build such institutions in the future. It's a cycle that feeds off itself. What you have done as a society is to undercut your autonomous institutions by making them completely dependent on the state, and I mean temples in this regard and the mathas in this regard. And the society is also more than happy to embrace secularism, because you see, it has traded English for culture. So therefore, your ability to produce intransigent people has gone down. I'll give you the lamest possible example, or the crudest possible example on this particular subject in the most, let's say, outwardly fashion. Ask yourself how many people have the self-confidence, because we constantly expect women to wear saris. I challenge the men to wear dhotis and walk in an uber elitist mall. Do that first. Because when you are capable of doing that, then you have the right to pontificate to women what they are supposed to wear to preserve culture. Okay, that's one. Second, compare this with the confidence of other people who comfortably wear whatever they can and whatever they are expected of in any place. Wo airport ho, ya mall ho, ya cinema hall. That is where is the problem of inferiority complex. That is colonial consciousness, which I am trying to highlight here. Understood? You can't seem to address the basic question of dressing and clothing. I would like to ask this simple question: how many people wear the kumkum or the vibhuti and get out of the house, but the moment they enter their office spaces, they wipe it off? I've seen so many people do that. I know of so many people who do that. That's not the case with other people. Whether he has to wear the topi or the pagadi, he is very comfortable wearing that. I respect them for it. I admire them for it, 100%. You can do the mulyankan later, ye sahi hai, galat hai, wo achhe hai, bure hai, that's a secondary issue. At least he is living by the principles that he believes in. He is more than comfortable, he is more than happy to cock the snook at the West and to basically say, aapka modernity gaya, tel lene, hum aise hi rahenge. He is very comfortable making that statement. You as a society don't have that confidence. He is very comfortable wearing that statement. He doesn't matter whether the dress is knee length or ankle length, it doesn't matter to him at all. He is comfortable wearing that cloth. Take a look at what's happening in Afghanistan and tell me that technology will trump over ideology. No, patience and ideology and conviction will always win. It's a question of the time cycle that you're interested in investing. They were ready to wait for 20 years. History has rewarded them. You may not like them. You may sit and point out whatever their flaws may be. But ultimately, after 20 years with patience, they have succeeded against the sole surviving superpower with its hyper-technology. Right? Draws a leaf out of that page. Because when I say this, Arey re, aa gaya Hindu Taliban. No. I am saying there is always something to be learnt even from the worst of your detractors and enemies or adversaries. Invest in your institutions. Preserve your institutions which are capable of preserving your way of life regardless of the ebb and flow of politics. Because politics is temporary, civilization is permanent. So if you keep your priorities right and you invest in those institutions which have proven to keep alive your way of life, despite the ravages of time and history, you will continue to produce people who will resist and who will bring back your way of life. Every time we have had a problem, some person, some rishi has come out to help a vibhuti. Sri Aurobindo effectively called Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj a vibhuti, as someone without whom this entire civilization would have effectively seen itself being pushed to the verge of extinction and wiped out. Such vibhutis have been created from time to time because there were institutions to produce them. Because at that time you were resisting the sword, and the only way to resist the sword is not to offer your neck but to draw the sword. But subsequently comes the guy who teaches you the value of tolerance and who effectively says, you and I can coexist, but you know what, you need to change a bit. So I will introduce, with the noblest of intentions, which of course pave the way to hell, reform. And how do I do that? What you read is outdated. So let's replace your patashalas with English education system and the colonial education system, and let's change the language policy. If you have your civilizational love centers which have the autonomy to run their own institutions of education, I dare say whether we have the solution or not, we'll at least have the, let's say, a better group of people with much more confidence and better solutions to offer because they have been trained in that system. I am not saying kill English. I am never going to say kill English. I am saying let it be just one of the, let's say, languages of communication, but it can't be the medium of instruction. There's a distinction between knowing a language and treating that as a medium of instruction. But you can't just change the medium of instruction by retaining the very same content, because then it is deadlier that you're consuming Western education in your mother tongue, which makes the impact even deadlier. Therefore, the change has to start with content as well as the medium in which that content is disseminated. Which is why for every generation, whether it's from 98 to 2004 or 2014 to 2021, we're saying education policy, education policy. I mean, like a stuck gramophone. That's an old reference anyway. We keep saying, please change the education policy, but some people seem to be taking pride in the fact that they've not changed a single page in history books. Okay, so when this is the sense of pride from which you operate, what do you do then? You can't actually tout this as a badge of honor. According to me, it's a badge of shame. Tomorrow, when it comes to a political platform, you're more than comfortable talking about how Marxists have distorted history, but you're no more in opposition to keep making this statement. What have you done is the specific question that you should be asking yourself. सत्ता आपके हाथ में है, तो आपने सत्ता का प्रयोग इन विषयों में कैसे किया, इसका जवाब दीजिए. That's a legitimate question to ask. If the other side asks he is anti-national, but I am pro-civilization, I am asking this question, what is wrong with the question? I am asking the question that kindly don't behave like you are the ruling party in opposition. That can't be the way you operate. When you reduce, I'm sorry, look at what has been going on. Whether it's in Bengal or Bangladesh, what is the difference today? What is the difference today? Some of those videos are horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. And we seem to be issuing emergency passports for Afghans. What's happening for Bangladeshi Hindus? So we are not just second-grade citizens inside the country, we are also second-grade people globally, is it? How many more videos do you want before you react? Last night I was sitting with my friends, hoping to have a good time. A research scholar from a minority institution in Delhi reaches out to me, who is the product of refugee Bangladeshi Hindus, crying. I don't know her from Adam, not Adam from Manu. I don't know her at all. She somehow found out my number, she calls and she weeps. Imagine at the dead of the night, a woman is calling and she's weeping, you don't know how to react. But I said, what's happening? So she said, sir, I got your number from so-and-so, so-and-so. I want to talk to you. I'm a research scholar. I come from this particular lineage. My relatives are still stuck in that hellhole. People are not reporting that 300 people have been killed, not 4, not 10, not 25, 300 people. Gang rapes in the same way as 1946 and 1971 are being repeated. Mass molestations near pandals. That news is not even coming out. Kya culture, kya civilization, bhai? You can't seem to protect these people. हम नहीं करेंगे तो कौन करेगा? पाकिस्तान. People were celebrating IPL, Dhoni's victory. I don't know what to make of it. What a suicidal community. What a delusional civilization. Dhoni has made a comeback, apparently that's what we should be celebrating. Really, what are your priorities? After listening to that girl, I said, kya kar rahe hain hum log? I don't even know the value of what we are doing. This is the real issue. लोग मर रहे हैं और अब क्रिकेट पे सेलिब्रेट किए जा रहे हैं. Replace the victim community with any other religion. Tell me that the people of that religion would have reacted in the same way, or they'd be celebrating an IPL victory. That is the reality of your situation. So stop blaming others. The problem lies within. These are your priorities. Dhoni over Bangladeshi Hindus being raped, murdered and killed. I don't know. I don't know what is the meaning of these discussions. I honestly don't know. What are we achieving? I'll write a book, it will sell. Commercially, it will 100% sell. What is my simple calculation? 184,000 followers on Twitter, 40,000 followers everywhere else, 25% minimum. At the very least, out of curiosity, somebody will buy. The minimum figure that you're supposed to cross to reach the bestseller section in the non-fiction category is 15,000. Chalo, ho gaya, mera to 25,000 ho gaya, the book is one. Kya ho jayega? Iske baad kya ho jayega? Kya ho jayega? How is this helping the Bangladeshi Hindu who is being raped and murdered?